We're starting chapter 3. In chapter 2, just the part we have to know to carry the flow through, is that we discussed the second type of fasting. The fasting we spoke in chapter 1 was more certain technical fasts to assist us in the process of Teshuva. In chapter 2, we spoke about the higher level of fasting, the true form of fasting, which has really nothing to do with Teshuva at all, and that has to do with the gift that comes after Teshuva. I mean, it's part of the package, but it's not the Teshuva process. It's like we said, like a carbon oila. When someone in the times of the Beis HaMikdash did certain sins, they had to bring a sin offering. After the sin offering, there was a mitzvah to bring the burnt offering, the carbon oila. That was not to do with the Teshuva, repent, because that was done already. That was to restore the good faith, restore the good feelings, to rebuild a relationship with Hashem. So we said in chapter 2 that it was like the burnt offerings, and we finished off. That's why it was more like a gift, more like a sort of a post, make-up gift. You have two friends that get into a disagreement or a fight or hurt each other, and then after they make up and they become friends, one of them goes and buys him a chocolate cake for Shabbos, or one goes and brings him a bottle of wine. Why are you doing that? It's not to say I'm sorry, that was done. This is more to bring back the good feelings. And this is what the carbon oila was meant to be. And then we finished off with saying that the Arizal would instruct his students to go and fast a certain amount, 151 fasts for this, and 72, all different numbers of fasts, depending on the sin they did. And it wasn't for repentance. It was also their bottle of wine, their chocolate cake. But it was 151 fasts. For getting angry, it was whatever number of fasts it was.
How many days consecutive days did people fast? Because I know one time, Esther fasted 3 days.
Right. So Esther's fast was unique that it was a 3-day, day and night fast. A lot of times when people fast multiple fasts, they'll fast only during the day. They'll fast from sunrise till nightfall. And that some people could do it a bunch of days. Some people do it twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. There's all different ways that people set up fasting. As we'll see towards the end of this chapter, today it's not done. At the end of the chapter, we're going to go into the whole discussion of fasting today and what options are. Not the end of the chapter, end of today's class. The end of the chapter goes much further. This actually is the final chapter on the subject of fasting, really. We spoke a lot about fasting because it happens to be a very huge topic and subject for most people who are into the process of repentance. Fasting seems to be part of it. And as you find out, it's not really part of it. It's a associated thing, but it's not really part of Teshuva. It's part of the general package of relationship building and strengthening. But in any case, we conclude this chapter, and we're really now bringing this subject of fasting home. What does it mean to bring it home? Until now we spoke, how did the students of the Arizal do it? But the question is, how do we do it today? How was it done 100 years ago? How is it done tomorrow? What's the relationship of fasting to us today? And that's what we're really going to do in this chapter. We're going to start off between an argument. Of course, you have to have an argument. It's a Torah study. An argument between two different of the later authors of the Musar movement. The original Musar, I don't mean the modern day Musar movement that started in the last 150, 200 years. Talk about going back 600, 700 years ago. The later authorities of the original Musar works, I should say, the Mishnahs Hasidim, etc. They not the Mishnahs Hasidim. I forgot the name of the sefer right now. Not another sefer. They argue how many fasts you should fast if you did the same sin multiple times. If a person did a particular sin, not once, but 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, do you have to fast 20 times that number? Let's say you got angry 5 times. Is it 5 times that many fasts? Let me just close the door. All right. Because we'll minimize some of the delightful sounds of the children. Though it's important, these sounds are the sounds of life. This is you never want to have a show without the sounds of delightful kids screaming. Okay, as long as they're happy. So one opinion is that you fast, as we'll see, the number of times that you did this transgression. And one opinion is that you fast once for all the times that you did this. Let's say you did sin A 20 times, you only fast once 151 fasts, not 20 times 151. That would be a lot more fasting. Okay. So now let's see this inside. The later authors, the wise sages of the Musar works, they had an argument Nechleku, they had an argument of Misha Chata Chet Achas Pa'amim Rabbis. If someone did one sin many times, how many fasts do you fast? The Yesh Eimrim, one opinion was Shetzarech Lis Anais Misper Hatzeimis La'Isei Chet Pa'amim Rabbis. K'vi Misper Ashachet Chata. That you have to fast the sin program. Let's say we said getting angry was 151 fasts. So you fast, let's say you got angry 10 times, so you fast 1,510 fasts. Very relaxing.
How many years is that?
It's a busy life. That's assuming you only had one type of sin, just getting angry. You never wasted time of Torah study, because a person could have 300,000-400,000 fasts to put up on the thing, and you're fasting for the next 1,800 years. So we have to. That's one opinion. You fast again. The good news is, or the practical news is, the people who fast these fasts are the people that were really very high level people. If you think about it, this was someone who concluded the process of repenting, and he did such small sins. These are the gifts. These are not fasts of repentance. These are fasts of gifts, the burnt offering thanks fasts. They're extra for the extraordinary, special, holy tzaddik. So we're not talking about average.
So why is he doing all those sins?
They're not sins. Look what they did. What did he fast for? His ritzua turned over. He got angry. What does it mean he got angry? He's not talking about that he threw a tantrum, anger management issues. We're talking about that he got angry in a moment of anger for something which is borderline if it's a transgression or not. The examples we gave was one guy disagreed with the sages who were his colleagues. He felt I should have been more understanding of their opinion. One guy's tefillin turned over a strap. One guy didn't tell his neighbor's cow to stop carrying a rope on Shabbos. We're talking about very, very small sins. So one opinion says you fast the amount of fasts times the amount of transgressions. So if it was 151 fasts for getting angry, you got angry twice. You fast twice, 151 fasts. And he gives an example here. If you get hametzi zer levatal, if somebody wastes seed, we're going to talk about why the Alter would choose this particular sin. This is a particular sin that is common amongst young men, especially going through the ages of the teen years, to go through and waste seed to do this particular sin. Mission is we find it to be, interestingly, it seems to be a non-sin at all because there's no forbidden relationship. No, we're talking about someone who does it intentionally. Someone who does it intentionally and waste seed. Good morning. We're talking about, in that case, seemingly no sin took place. There's no forbidden relationship. Yet we find the Torah that is taken as a very serious transgression. Why? We could talk about it a little bit. We spoke about it a little bit when we spoke about it in Tanya originally. This particular sin, we mentioned that it's taking the most valued possession that God gives a human being, the ability to create life, and we're just disrespecting it. But it's not because of the pleasure, it's because of the wasting of this energy, as we'll get back to in a minute. But we're going to see why he chooses this particular example in this case. Seemingly, the simple reason why he chooses it is because this is what type of sin you're going to bring up. For a guy who did something years ago, it's a sort of I don't want to say a safe sin to bring up, but it's a practical sin. It's not eating pork. It's not, going and desecrating, the Shabbos, lighting a fire. Something that young people are challenged with. In today's society, it's not seen as a sin. On the contrary, a lot of psychologists and therapists encourage this behavior. But that's another discussion. So he says, for an example, someone who committed the sin of, as it's called in Hebrew, zer levatala, seed that is wasted, it's brought down to the writings of the Arizal that how many fasts do you fast for that particular sin? And pay dalatinius 84 fasts, which is interesting. Getting angry is 151 fasts. This sin is 84 fasts. And if a person did this 10 times or 20 times in his life, I'll let for an example. According to that opinion, if you did this particular sin, you'd have to fast either 840 or 1680. I did the math before, about that quick. So to do that many fasts for the sin 10 or 20 times. We'll discuss later, interesting, why he chooses number 10 or 20 times. Why doesn't he say 2 or 3 or 5 or 6? What's 10 or 20? And we'll see soon. I'll just tell you in case I get to get back to it. The number 10, Yud is a Yud. Yud is a 10. 10, when someone does a sin, they're messing with the essence of their soul. The Yud, the essence, the Yud is always as we know, there's the Yud, there's a Hey above Hey. Yud represents that deep first, almost like the first seed, the first drop. It's the deep essence of the soul. In general, we say when it comes to the seed, the zera, the semen that comes from a man, we say that it starts in the brain and travels down the spine. It doesn't mean it travels down the spine, physical matter, the actual travels down. It means sensation that comes from the brain down to the spine that gets this, that produces this seed. And the seed is something connected to the essence of a man's soul. That's what has the power to create. And when you waste it, you're wasting the yud. Now, the word yud is 10. That's the, so you give an example 10 times. What's 20? If you want to spell out the letter yud in Hebrew, it's yud, vav, daled. Yud, vav, daled is 20. A yud is 10, vav is 6, daled is 4, is 20. That's 20. 10 to 20 means in its initial stage as it's a seed, as it's a one yud, the depth of the soul, and how it's expanded into the yud, vav, daled also. 10 to 20 represents the two ways that this letter can be expressed, or this concept is expressed, this energy. Bottom line is, he says, over 10 or 20 times, you'd fast 840 or 1,680 fasts. That's the first opinion. And where do they get this theory from? Dumya the korban chatas. It's like a korban chatas. The halacha is, and there's a lot of complexities of how you apply this exactly, based on how the transgressions were done. If somebody did a sin at times in the Beis HaMikdash, and he did the same sin 4 times, he went 4 times, let's say, and he desecrated Shabbos. So, and we're talking about by mistake there. The korban chatas is brought for accidental doing, not on purpose. For on purpose, they didn't have really tshuva. They didn't have offering in the temple. Did it on purpose. Talking about accidentally did the sin 4 times. So you had to bring, even if it was the same sin, you had to bring 4 sin offerings. He says, like the sin offering, you have to bring for each time you did the sin, you have to bring another offering. It's the same thing for each time you do the fasts. Here the fast was 100, let's say 84 fasts. So bring 84 times 4, 84 times 10, 84 times 20. That's what he says. That's opinion number 1. Very, very significant amount of fast days packed up for a person's schedule. Like we said, the korban chatas, you have to bring a sin offering for every single time that you did it. This is talking, by the way, just so you know, as a side note, only if you did the sin offering is only if you did what's called behelam, not behelam echas. Behelam echas means I didn't know and I transgressed 4 times. Then you have to bring only 1 chatas. But let's say you didn't know, and then you found out, and then you forgot, and you didn't know, and then you did the sin. Meaning 4 separate, meaning unknowns. Let's say when a person does a mistake, it's unknown. So let's say a person now is 40 years old. And the past 40 years, 2,000 times on Shabbos, they lit a cigarette. 2,000 times, it's all called 1 helam. Why? I didn't know. I never knew in between. So that's all called 1 transgression because there was 1 mistake. I didn't know. But if a person know, and then he forgot, or become aware, and then he meaning, oh yes, shucks, I forgot. I keep forgetting because you remember, someone's learning the laws. There's a lot of laws to know. Oh, I forgot I couldn't do that one. Oh, I forgot I should. Oh, I forgot. I accidentally turned on the light. So accidental things, inadvertent things you didn't know. So it would only require multiple sacrifices if it was multiple forgettings, multiple times I didn't know. But it was all 1 package, you still only bring 1. But that's a side thing. But the bottom line is, there's right criteria, right situation, you'd have to bring a sacrifice for every single time you did the same exact sin. So a person could bring 30 sin offerings just for lighting a cigarette on Shabbos if it was 30 separate episodes with 30 separate knowing and not knowing, knowing and making a mistake, etc. So he says that's the same thing. How many do you have to bring here? Now you might ask a question, 1 second. We learned in chapter 2 that the Alter Rebbe told us that this fasting on a fast that we do is like the burnt offering, not the sin offering. So the Rebbe explains, and there's a lot of commentary for the Rebbe, by the way, on the Iggeres Hateshuva, a lot. The Rebbe explains that, and we're going to talk about this more in this chapter, there's something called a skalos. We know it from the counting of the Omer. Skalos means included many different things in each other. Like a painting, you have a painting and it has many colors, but really all those colors are not really found in the palette. All those colors that you see are a mixture of a little bit gray, brown, and gray, I should say gray, let's say red, yellow, and green in the right amounts, and you're getting the color you want for the skin or the forehead or the beard, etc. So those are not really pure colors. Those are all haskalos mixed. That means everything in life is a mix. Parenting is a mixture of kindness and strictness. A purely kind parent is not so kind at all. Here, stay up as late as you want, eat as much chocolate as you want, go play in traffic. That's not being nice. That's being foolish or irresponsible. So, like we see in the counting of the Omer, chesed shebem gvura, gvura shebem chesed. The kindness that's mixed into gvura, and gvura is mixed into kindness. So he says the truth is, in the element of carbon chatas, you have the element of carbon oila. In the element of oila, you have the carbon chatas. It's not just pure, isolated, just oila, just chatas. The elements are mixed in. So yes, we were talking about the oila, but there's an aspect of chatas and an aspect of oila. There's aspects of everything, as we'll see in a few minutes, that there's in every single behavior and conduct and in mitzvah and in sin, there's a mixture of all different elements mixed in. Nothing is purely one thing. Just like the Rambam says that every single thing in the world is combined of 4 primary elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. Not in that order, but earth, wind, fire, and water. So each one has the only things that are exceptions. He says steam doesn't have any earth, smoke doesn't have any moisture, any water. But in general, there are very few exceptions in the world that are missing one of those 4 elements. Every single thing has a certain amount, and that combination makes the existence of, it breaks down into more elements, etc. So really, it's not a problem that we said in the previous chapter that the carbon oila is the metaphor or the origin of this fasting today, because it's the oila and the chata, so each one includes a little bit of the other. But one opinion says, that's opinion number 1, that we bring a set of the prescribed amount, let's say 84 fasts for this particular sin, as many times as the sin was done. That's one opinion, like the carbon chatas. And some people say, no, that's not what you do. You do it once for all the times that you did that sin. So if someone got angry 14 times, he only brings once, he only has to fast once, 151 fasts. He doesn't fast 151 times as many times as he got angry. It's 151 times 1 for all the times. So you got angry 100 times, you only fast once, 151 times, that clears all of them. And they compare it to the burnt offering. The burnt offering was, no matter how many times you did a sin, you only brought one burnt offering for all the sins that you've done. You didn't have to bring multiple for each time that you committed that same sin. Let's see that inside, 3 lines in the bottom on page 183. And some people say, no, it's like the burnt offering that is brought after someone transgresses or misses an opportunity of doing a positive commandment. And in that case, you bring only one burnt offering for all the multiple times you did the same exact sin, or you transgress the same positive commandment. You only bring one time the burnt offering. So there's an argument. What's the logic of one time? And it's very simple. If you get dirty, and even if you spill 5 times soda on the tablecloth, you only put it in the washing machine once. You don't have to say, you know what, you spilled 5 times soda? Now I gotta wash it 5 times? Well, come on. And the other person says, no, the more you wash it, the more stains, the deeper it goes. There's a surface stain, there's deeper stains. That seems to be, at first glance, before we go further, the difference. If we, why would you wash it out? Now I got to take 5 showers because you got me dirty 5 times because I'm playing outside on mud. I got to take 7 showers now. Okay. Then we have the rabbi, who says, you know what? Let's compromise. And compromises sometimes make more obvious sense than others. Let's see if we can understand the compromise here. He says, you know what? Fasting one time doesn't seem enough. Fasting multiple times, that's a little wild. I mean, you're going to fast, 2,000 fasts, 4,000 fasts, 8,000 fasts? How about this, he says? We fast 3 times the multiple. That means for the sin of wasting seed, the example he gave here, which is 84 fasts, you fast 252 fasts. Why 252? That's 3 times 84. Again, the numbers are not my math. It's in here. And that way, you know that you covered it 3 times the multiple for each sin. So if somebody did the sin of anger 3 times, you fast 3 times 151, but that's it. Even if you did it 40 times, you still fast only 3 times the number. So if you got angry 50 times or 100 times, you're still only going to fast, 300 and, what is the number then? 453. That when I did the math. 453 for all the times that you got angry, even if you got angry 100 times. And this is actually the halacha. The halacha is we follow this opinion. We follow the opinion that you only fast 3 times the multiple required for a particular sin, even if you've done the sin multiple times. Obviously, up to 3. If you only did it twice, you don't have to fast 3 times. But we're talking once you do it 3 times, you maxed out and you don't have to do it anymore. You maxed out the maximum amount of penalty that you get. Like Menishville, exactly. Yeah, after you only get 6, I think, hits per hole. Even if it took you 80 times, you get 6. Last word on the page, which is accepted Bezeh, this anois gimel pa'amim, to fast 3 times the multiple. How much this required sin needs that many fasts. And he says, the Hainu, he says what it means. Reish nun beis seimes, that's 252 fasts. If somebody wastes seed, similarly would be with all other sins. The question is, what is the logic? What is the logic of the 3 opinions here? We don't just have arguments, and then one guy says, one guy says, and one guy says, and we have 3 opinions. There has to be a deeper logic besides saying it's a lot, it's a little. So to understand this, we have to take a few minutes, and the Rebbe has a talk from 1970, and that's what I'm going to share a piece of this talk. It's a fascinating insight into everything that we have to know about sinning, mitzvahs, human beings, connectivity, Jews, etc. It goes back, first of all, to the idea of eskalus. Eskalus means the all-inclusiveness of each thing. The fact that, for an example, your body, or let's say I get an easier example, a cake. When you bake a cake, you may not like flour by itself, or eggs by itself, or vanilla by itself, or sugar or salt or whatever it is, brown sugar, but all together, it's an amazing combination to make a nice fluffy cake. And that's delicious. And at the end of the day, you don't even see the individual parts. It's all eskalus. The beauty, it's like a painting. The beauty is that they're all melded in the right amount, the right sound. Same thing with the orchestra music. It's not the sound of the keyboard going bing, bing. It's the amount of times you use it together with the violin and all the instruments making the beautiful sound. Same things with the human body. It's included flesh and blood and organs and all sorts
forget
of
it's
arteries,
I
and
think
etc.
it's I
All that coming together is what creates the absolute harmony of the human body. The same thing is true of the Jewish people. The Jewish people are one human body starting from Adam. Adam was the representation of the whole encompassing Jewish people. And when we say Adam, I mean Adam's soul. And that is, you have the soul of Adam. One person is Adam's, or this primordial man. The one person is considered the legs. One person is the heart. One person is the eyes. One person is the lungs. Whatever you are. For an example, some people are doers. That means they come from the hands of the soul. Some people are more emotional people. They come from the heart. Some people have a creativity. Maybe it's the eyes, the vision. Some people have a good understanding, compassion, listening. They come from the ears, etc. Every part of our body, every part of our the global body of man of the Jewish people, and everybody comes from one of those. That means we're all really one soul. This is what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya in chapter 32, and this is the understanding of how one Jew is responsible for another. How could it be if you do a mitzvah, it affects me? If I do a mitzvah, it affects you. If we do a sin, a guy says, "Listen, I'm on the boat. I'm drilling a hole under my seat." It doesn't. No, it's all on the same boat. Same thing is, if you say, "You know what? I'm putting an injection of some poison or health thing in one limb of the body." Everyone else be quiet. What does it come from, this connection? The blood. The blood brings the entire body together. It's the flow that what's in your brain is now in your legs, is now in your liver, is now in your heart, now going through the lungs. Well, not in the lungs, but through the parts of the lungs where it oxygenates the blood. Every single part of you, every single part of the body is connected with the rest of the body. An infection in one part of the body could affect and weaken the entire body and cause significant medical problems and weakness in the entire body. A medication inserted in one part of the body affects everything. When someone eats, the arms don't say, "Hey, I'm also hungry. I also want to get some food." It's coming down to you. Once we get it through the system, the stomach, digestive system, it's going to get to everybody. Because whatever you do affects all the parts of the body. It's amazing how medication that you take orally could affect your toes and your ears and your liver and your heart, blood pressure, because it's all connected. This is true about all of mankind, all of the Jews as a whole, that we are all one. And this is a basic understanding that we give in the laws of Ahavas Yisrael, loving a fellow Jew, laws of davening, why we say before davening, why don't we say, I accept upon myself the mitzvah of Kiddush? Before we start davening, I accept upon myself the mitzvah of keeping Shabbos. No, we only say, before davening, I accept upon myself the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael. Why Ahavas Yisrael? The simple answer, not the simple, but the profound answer, the deep answer given by Chassidus and Tzemach Tzedek, is that in order for us to successfully receive Hashem's blessing, we have to have a functionality in the body. If there's a disconnect in the body, the blessings won't help. If God forbid there's a problem with the blood flow in the body, and limbs are disconnected, you can't save that limb. That limb is lost. Even you might say, but 1 second, but I'm getting blessings, I'm taking medication. It's not going to help you. There's no blood flow to that leg or to that party, or that there's a problem. You have to have a unity and a no disconnect, God forbid. And then the blessings that you take will help you and benefit you. So there has to be a unity amongst the body in order for the blessings to be beneficial and to be received. When someone does every one of the, we said this earlier, every one of the 613 mitzvahs correspond to the 1613 parts of our soul, which will correspond to the 613 parts of our body. So there are 613 mitzvahs, 613 parts of our soul, and 613 parts of our body. And it's actually, I always picture this, I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you remember this more than I do. There used to be the old plugs in the back of a computer for a printer or something. They used to have something like 30, 40, or 50 little prongs. And if one got bent, it was hard to get that whole, it was like a very wide plug, like a connector, and it had many, many little, each one had a thing you had to go into. I remember the printer lines. If you have one was bent, there's a problem. Good luck getting it in. You have some other devices like that have many, many prongs you have to fit in. It's like 30 or 40. That's how it is. There's 613 connectors from the soul to the body, and they connect exactly each one. And every body part corresponds to another part of the soul and is energized by another mitzvah. So, for an example, when someone goes and lights Shabbos candles, and that's a mitzvah of your eyes and your hands to go and interact with those two mitzvahs, your eyes and your hands interact with the soul's eyes and hands. And when you light the candles, that brings the soul positive energy and gives the healthy life the soul needs. If God forbid somebody sins with their hands or their eyes, that causes a negative thing in the physical hands of the person, the physical eyes of the person whoever you sinned with, and then how it translates into the soul. So every sin or mitzvah, let's take the sin in this case here, damages, God forbid, every sin damages, God forbid, a certain limb. A limb of your body, but really more importantly, a limb of your soul. So if you do a certain sin, there's a particular limb in your soul, particular 613 aspects of your soul that's now damaged by the sin. We're going to break this down into 3 things. When a person does a sin, there's 3 areas that the sin affects. Number 1, the sin affects that you rebelled against God. That's number 1. Number 2, the sin affects that this particular limb is affected by the sin. So first is that I rebelled against God. Second is that limb 20A, or let's call it limb 362, is damaged. And number 3 is all the limbs are, because of this, going to have effect. Because all limbs are connected, all limbs have a damage. That's the 3 things. Now we're going to zoom in to the reason number 2, aspect number 2. Aspect number 2 is the sin that damage to that particular limb of the soul that happens through a sin. And in that, there are 3 aspects to it. And that's what we're going to focus on right now. Of the 3 things we said, rebelling against God, the damage to that limb, and the damage to all the limbs, we're going to focus in on aspect number 2, the damage to that particular limb. And in that, there's 3 aspects. Number 1, this is the Rebbe's talk, it's fascinating. Number 1, there's the fact that that limb is damaged. That limb has damage. Number 2, every single limb has hiskalos. What does that mean? Within this limb is included all 612 other limbs. Because, just like in a painting, that every color includes other colors mixed in, it's like you could call it on a DNA level, you go on any level you want. I don't know biologically or physiologically how to explain it, but every single limb includes all the other limbs within that limb. So the second level is how all the other limbs, as they are found in this limb, are damaged. So it's the damage of all other limbs as they are included in limb 362. And the third thing is, we said that every limb is included in every limb. That means all the other limbs also have limb 362 inside them. If this has all 612 other limbs in it, that means all the other limbs have this limb in it. And therefore, the third thing is how all the other limbs, their limb 362 aspect, that skalos is damaged by the sin. So the sin happens in 3 effects in this limb. Number 1, the limb itself. Number 2, how this limb includes all the other limbs, those are damaged. And how this limb is included in all the other limbs, how it's damaged there. And that's the 3 opinions, how many fasts you have to fast. One says the fast is all about this particular limb, and you fast just once. You fast once, 151 fasts, one segment, and it covers everything. That's one opinion. One opinion says no, you have to do it how they're let's go in order of the Tanya. One opinion, the other extreme says no. You have to fast for every single limb that's damaged, where the scalus, where it's included in every other limb. That means it's endless every single time, because the scalus goes on and on. Every time you do it could be, you can have chesed shebegvura, and you can have chesed shebechesed shebegvura, and you can have chesed shebechesed shebegvura. I mean, everything can be broken down in multiple levels. He said, therefore, no matter how many times you sin, it's an endless pattern of included and included. Therefore, as many times as you sin, that's how many times you have to do the whole set. And the third one says no. You're only focusing on the middle aspect, which is all the other limbs included in here. And for that, 3 is enough. Why 3 is enough, we'll see in a minute. For that, to cover the limbs as they are included in this limb, all the other limbs, just 3 is enough. I hope I was able to explain it clearly. This is how the Rebbe explains the different views of the effect of a sin. So if we think about it, it's a global effect. And again, we're only focusing here on the aspect within our body, and within our body or within our soul, not in the global picture. And of that, we're focusing on, we said in the very beginning, the first 3 was rebelling against God, the damage to this particular limb, the damage to all the other limbs. We're focusing on a certain aspect. Really, the damage of a sin is much, much greater. We're focusing on here on, we're zooming in like a microscope.
So it's like having a candle or a person standing in a room with lots of mirrors, and all the mirrors have that same image.
Yes, that'll be a good example. Yeah, that'll be a good example. And it's endless. If you're able to find an angle to see further and further and further, and that's what the argument is. So, that example is the third case. Third case is where my existence is really included in every other mirror. Every other mirror has my limb in it. And the other one is that the truth is, if other images are out there, let's say there were a way to do the candle setup, where you have thousands of candles, and all those candles somehow can be projected back into me, is how all those other candles are seen in my mirror, if there was a way to do it,
If you're just standing there holding a mirror.
Yeah, if you're holding a mirror, but no, there, it's all and just one candle. But imagine now, to make it more complicated, that there were 613 candles. And every or 603 candles, and all the mirrors now are not only absorbing the candle from my candle, the original, but all 613 candles are multiplied. So it's many layers. And that's the question of how deep the sin goes. So that's the way he explains it. That's the 3 opinions here. 3 different ways to see the effect or the where the sin permeates. But now we can understand why he used the example of emitting seed and wasting seed. Why is that example given? It says in the Rambam, and the Alter Rebbe down in Shulchan Aruch, is brought down in the Chassidus, seed is the strength of a body. The Rambam says that most people who get sick and die is from having too much relations in their lifetime, or wasting seed too many times wasted. In other words, he says seed is the strength of the body. He brings all different cases of what the too much emission of seed could do to the human body. It just wastes it depletes the strength. So we're saying it's not just an isolated single thing. This is the strength of the body. This is the power of the body. And just like it's not just one particular sin, that it's one thing, that it just affects one particular thing, but the effect on the entire global body is huge. That means what you do when seed is in the emission of seed, whether it's for a mitzvah, or whether it's for a sin, you're depleting the resources of the body. In other words, the whole body's weaker. Your eyesight, the Rambam says, your eyesight is affected, and your hearing. And it's actually fascinating how he describes the aging of a body that takes place with excessive relations. But the bottom line is, this is why we use this example. This example is the best case where you see that one particular behavior of one limb could have an effect on all the other limbs of the body. All the other limbs, and in the positive, you see how we can create. In the positive, you see how this one thing can create a whole other body. In that one particular emission could be the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, the entire structure of the human body created in the form of a newborn baby. But the negative is how the entire body is affected. So you see here best the idea of a scalus. The idea of a scalus is found most, and it's actually fascinating, in a seed, the single seed to create a child, in one, I guess, sperm cell, whatever the proper word would be to use. You see within that the ultimate scalus. Every single possibility of the child's creation is found in there. Just like you have in every part of the body, the DNA, in this particular thing, you have the power to create every single limb of the body. That's the ultimate of a scalus. And that's why I use this particular example, according to the Rebbe. Okay, now, why is 3 enough? Why is the number we select for all the different types of limbs included in this limb? That was the middle example, the middle perspective of all the limbs that are included, is scholars in this limb. But we're talking about the soul. All the other parts of the soul are included in this part of the soul which is damaged, and therefore the damage hits every single one. Why in this case was 3 fasts enough? He says, because it says in Zohar, in the Holy Zohar, it says, Zim nachada of the Shimei, Zim Tlisai is pashtahu kisma misedal. He says a stain one time makes a stain, but after 3 times it permeates from one end to the other. And it doesn't just mean in the width of a garment or width of something, it means in the depth. The depth of a stain that goes in, it can be a surface stain, but then it can go in deeper. When you have a stain or a sin 3 times, the 4th time is not much worse. Meaning the first 3, as we'll see from the process of it, we're not going to do it today, but next time we learn, the process of the fasting, it's the first 3 that are the most important, because the first 3 are where the sin is the most damaging. In other words, the stain that goes into something that's absorbed, as Iggeres says, when a soul is damaged by a behavior, 3 times it's in. One simple way to understand it is, they say when a person transgresses 3 times, the 4th time doesn't bother them anymore. You lost your sensitivity to it. And you see it also, by the way, at a garment in a simple state. A guy gets a tiny stain or a little stain on their garment, is very frustrating. You get a second stain, you're upset. But a 3rd stain, you know what? Because this garment's done. You know what? I'm using that for painting the house. I'm going to switch this to painting pants. There's a certain level. Where does that line happen? In Kabbalah, it's the 3rd time. The 3rd time is already at crust. So that's what you want to do. You want to get, and taking it out, the same thing. To remove it, it's a process of 3. And in general, in Judaism, 3 is a chazaka. 3 is considered, we wash our hands 3 times. Why 3 times, really? It's because to make sure you wash properly, you really have to wash it once. But you want to make sure it's done right. Everything is 3 times makes something a chazaka. Whenever you want something to be certain, we say it 3 times. That's like ensuring the results. Let me just see if we just start the next section now. Yeah, let's go another 2 lines, because then next week we'll start. Next time we learn the whole other extreme. That's why you have to have number of fasts 3 times as well. We're going to stop here. Now that we just said that this is the point, that the way to finally finish off a fast, to finish off the replacement of the burnt offering is with a fast, the Alter Rebbe is going to say that was in those days, but today we don't fast. So what comes out is like this. Originally, the process was, of course, you shouldn't sin. But if you sin, you bring a burnt offering. If you have no burnt offerings, you fast. If you can't fast, because today we don't fast anymore, what do you do now? We're running out of options. And as we'll see, the answer is going to be tzedakah. So there's a famous thing. A guy comes to a rabbi. He says, it says in Tanya that they used to bring a burnt offering. Then they said you fast. Now it says the only thing you can do today, our day, is give tzedakah instead of fasting. What's if I have no money? He says, don't sin. If you have money, just don't sin. But we'll see, he's going to go back now and say the process of today to replace the fasts is going to be tzedakah. But he's going to explain that there are certain amounts of fasts that you should do, you shouldn't do, it depends when, it depends on the person. So now we're going to go into practical today, because he says this is all good 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. But how about today? And if this is how the Rebbe says it today in the late 1790s, imagine, or the 1790s, imagine today in the year 2023, as we'll see how much it applies more, our bodies, we became such few. They say in the olden days, we talk about the yeshiva boys, they said the yeshiva boys in the olden days had stomachs of steel and minds of silk, meaning fine minds, and they could eat anything. They eat hard bread, old bread, the food wasn't so fresh, and it was time. Today, their stomachs are like silk. They have to have the finest foods, and their minds are like steel. Nothing goes in. So our bodies have changed. We became much easier, to be wimpy and tired and headaches. We're fasting. I need a cough day. I'm fasting. I'm having a procedure. That's how we are. And that's not a criticism. Our bodies have changed, but we're going to see actually in the process, it's not a flaw. It's a change, but it's not a flaw as much as it is a change. And that's what the Alter Rebbe is going to bring out here. We'll stop here, and I'll be in touch when we have our next class.